Hello everyone, welcome. This is Sam from Dream Workshops Amsterdam. Today is a tutorial on how to create a glass petal flower using these glass beads and a piece of wire. So I'm going to show you how to weave the wire through each of the petals and how to assemble it so that it is tightly secured. So first we're going to take a 30 centimeter piece of wire that's about 0.4 millimeters thick and fold it in half. So just pinch the wire in the middle, and then we will take our first petal and just feed it onto the wire. So feed the petal all the way through to the center of the wire, and make sure you pinch and tighten the wire going through the hole. We're now going to double loop the wire back through the hole in the petal, and it doesn't matter if you use the front or the back, you just thread the wire back through to double loop it. So I'm going to use the front wire and feed it back through the back to double loop it, and then I'm going to pull it tightly. To make sure that the wire is tight, pull it on both ends. And this is a double loop that I have to create for every single petal. So for the subsequent petals, we will use the front and the back wire, and we will double loop the next petal with the back wire, and then repeat the same thing with the front wire. So first we're going to use the back wire, and we're going to thread the next petal on so that they are touching back to back. Once you have threaded the second petal on back to back, you're going to move the second petal and the first petal so they're directly next to each other, but as tight and as close as possible. You would then do a double loop using the wire that's already in the second petal. So feed the wire through the back again, and make sure you pull it tightly to create the double loop. We're now going to go back to the first petal, and the wire that comes out of the front of the first petal, we will feed it through the hole of the second petal and double loop it. So feed the wire through the front hole of the second petal and pull it tightly, and then double loop it. So that's pretty much it. We will repeat this same double looping for all of the subsequent petals. So when we bring the next one in, we will use the back wire, feed it through, double loop, and then the front wire, feed it through, double loop. So now we take the third petal, and again we feed it onto the back wire from the previous petal and make sure that they are back to back. Again, place it tightly directly next to the previous petal, and guess what? You're going to double loop again. So the main thing to remember when making a double loop is to make sure the petal is as tight and as close to the previous petal, and when you're pulling the wire through, make sure it's nice and tight. So once you finish doing the double loop of the back wire, push the back wire to the side so it's out of the way, and then you're going to take the front wire off the previous petal, and again feed it through the front hole and double loop it. There are multiple ways of assembling these glass bead flowers, but the way I'm showing you right now gives the most stable and secure assembly, and it also has the neatest pattern when completed. So hopefully by now the pattern should be pretty familiar. So we're going to get our next petal, that'd be petal 4, and again feed it through the back, and so it's directly next to the previous petal, and double loop. To make sure that the flower is tight and secure, every single time you loop the wire through the petal, you must pull it quite tightly. And you must make sure that the petals are as closely packed together as possible. If you don't pull tightly on the wires when assembling the flower will be a little bit loose. The petals will kind of drop to the side, and this isn't a big problem because it can be fixed by adding a drop of glue in between the two petals. But we try to avoid this because gluing is permanent and it also can be quite messy. So hopefully by now you know what you're doing. And once you completed the final petal, the last thing we needed to do is connect the fifth petal back to the first petal. And to do this, we do exactly the same thing. We just use the same method of double looping the back wire and the front wire through the next petal. So take the back wire from petal 5 and double loop it through the hole of petal 1. For the final flower, once you pull the wire through, you have to loop it back through the center of the flower now to create the double loop. And finally, we're going to take the front wire from petal 5 and loop it through the hole of petal 1. And again, double loop, and you have to go through the center of the flower. And once you completed that final double loop, that completes the assembly of the flower. There is this one wire at the top, and all you have to do is to push that through the center of the flower. And once you've done that, the flower is completed. If you look at the center of the flower, you should see this pentagon pattern with a 5-point star in the middle. And if you see that, it means you've assembled it correctly.